welcome to Slayerfest 98. I'm your host, Ian Carlos Crawford, and today my co-host is one of my faves from the UK. He is a writer and journalist and author.
Philip Ellis, hello. It is so lovely to be back once again.
It's been a minute.
It has. I think I've only been on once this season so far for what was a bit of a dreary episode. So I'm really happy to be back for a more fun one where there's actual plot and some interesting character stuff going on. So yeah, can't wait to dive right in. But first, we have to introduce our two wonderful guests. So first off, we have got YouTuber and host of the Into You and Last Week On podcasts,
Adam Straughan.
Hello, welcome.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
And next up, we have pro wrestling host, interviewer, commentator, and competitor,
Quinn McKay.
Hi, Quinn.
Hi. I'm so happy to be here.
She really does it all. Yeah, I'm so happy to have both of you. Quinn, would you like to start us off with your Buffy origin?
Yes. Okay. So my very first real episode that I remember watching of Buffy, because I think I was 10, was The Gift, which was fully traumatizing. And my brother is who got my entire family into watching Buffy weekly, and we watched it together episodically. And I remember it was the first crazy thing that I had ever really seen on TV, because again, I was a literal child. So Buffy just dies, right? And then it ends. And I was like, wait, they killed Britney Spears? And I was hooked after that. So when season 6 came out, I was appalled, and I was like, but she's dead. What are they going to do? How are they going to bring her back? And then, we watched every week after that. And then whenever I was in college, I started doing improv at a local theater called Class Act Productions. And the regular Buffy that they had for their episodes, for their staged parodies, got pregnant. So I got to step in for the first half of season 7. And it was the most incredible thing I've ever done in my life. I got to live out my dream of truly being Buffy Summers. And it changed my life forever. However, I did it with the express purpose of I know they do Once More with Feeling once a year. So if I do this, I get to be in Once More with Feeling. And then they did it 2 weeks after the actual Buffy came back from maternity leave.
You sing too?
I would surprise you at karaoke, but okay. No.
I think I've said this before, but Quinn, I always feel I get Slayer vibes from your selfies when you're working out. I always am
life goal. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sincerely.
I mean, it is chaotic that the first episode you ever saw was The Gift.
Right?
And then your first full season would have been season 6, which is just it's a lot. You really did go in at the deep end.
Yeah. Yeah, right, Philip? I feel we said this a lot during that season. It's it does become a little bit of a slog where it's just we're doing the crying again.
Guys, I love season 6. And probably because it was the first full season that I ended up watching and the first season I was really exposed to. But even to this day, I know it's a very controversial take. I love season 6. I
do think season 6, while I love Cordelia, I love Oz, Cordelia is one of my favorite characters. I think season 6 has the strongest Scooby group with Anya and Tara. They're really good additions, and it feels more, I don't know, but I like that version of the Scoobies, maybe my favorite. Also, I need to point out, we had some issues with Zencastr and we were recording over Zoom, and it is very weird. This is my first episode we've ever recorded with video.
Yeah, my bad, everybody. So, Adam, would you like to tell us your Buffy origin story?
Yes. So, I've been looking forward to this. So, I remember, so obviously, Philip, you might be able to, I'm not sure how old you are, but you might remember this. So I was watching it when it was live on TV, and it was on Sky 1. So this was 9 o'clock Thursday nights when Buffy was on. And then when Angel started, it was 10 o'clock. So it was straight after. But I remember I came downstairs, and my parents were big Buffy fans, and my older brother was watching it as well. And I walked into the living room, and then I literally walked in on the moment of season 3. And the episode is Choices, I believe, when... so that's the episode when Faith captures Willow, and it's all about they've got the box and they have to make the exchange, right? So it was the scene when Willow levitates the pencil and then stakes the vampire from behind. And that was the scene I walked in and I was, okay, what is this? And I need it in my life immediately. And then It was my older brother who weirdly kind of fell off the show after season 3, just wasn't really interested, which is still a crime, which I'm not over. But however, he literally gave me the hottest take of in 30 seconds of what Buffy the Vampire Slayer is. So he gave me every character, what was going on. And I was like, wow, okay, got it. I am in. And then I kind of watched the rest, which that's quite far through season 3. So I watched the rest of season 3 and I was like, right, okay, this is like the greatest show ever. And I remember like, this was at the time when, like, you know, we used to walk down to school and like friends would knock on the door and you'd walk down to school together. And I had one friend, there was like 4 of us that used to walk down together. And one of them, my friend Peter, he was like crazy on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but none of us watched it. So I remember the next day on Friday, he knocked on the door. We were walking down to school and I was like, Peter, do you know what I watched last night? I watched Buffy. And he was like, no, he just completely lost his mind. And then that was it. We were just geeking out. And our other 2 friends were just staring at us like, who the hell are these nerds? But then that got them into Buffy as well. And then, yeah, I kind of watched from the rest of season 3 and then kind of just continued on. So like when Angel leaves at the end of season 3, I was like, oh, well, you know, I don't really get what the big emotional hit is here because I didn't have any of the season 2 context at all. And then I remember going back and buying like seasons 1 and 2 and then watching them and being like, oh, sweet Jesus, I have missed a lot. And then I loaned like season 1 and 2 to my other friend who we used to walk out to school with. And I was like, you need this in your life immediately. Don't talk to me until you've watched it all. And then, that was me getting him into Buffy. And then that was it. For the rest of the time, us walking down to school together, we used to riff and talk about Buffy. So yeah, it was that season 3 episode. So thank God I came downstairs at that point in my life.
You have just taken me back to sitting on the school bus on like a Friday morning talking about, I can remember very vividly the morning after graduation day aired. On the Friday morning, we were like, oh my God, like what's going to happen? Like, is Faith dead? Is Angel dead? Like, he looks really good with the shirt off. What's that about? I have these mixed feelings. I'm 13 years old. You both have a very good Buffy origins.
Well, right, because in the UK they didn't delay graduation day, right?
I don't think so. No, right. Because I guess in the States that the schedules were always changed because was always a school shooting. The national pastime, and we don't have as much of that over here,
thankfully. But we
the nice humble brag you have there.
Must be nice.
I mean, we got Buffy much later on anyway, so it was kind of like it was already pretty much like either it was so far ahead in America and then it started for us, or like one season was over and it started. So I guess we just got a clear run.
Yeah, we were always about like a year behind.
Because that was why I fell out, because when season like the graduation day was like prolonged, I was like, oh, I want to wait till I see the finale, but I thought I just missed it. I didn't realize it like had been pushed, and then it was like forever until the VHS tapes came out that I see graduation day. But we are here to talk about Buffy season 7's first date. Quinn, what is your season 7 hot take?
So I feel like my season 7 hot take is not very hot. Like it's the same as everybody else's. Like it's very doom and gloom. I really find joy, especially in episodes like this, where it's like the last few magic moments that you get between the Scooby Gang just doing stuff that's like not super high risk, high reward before everything's just like balls to the wall. Right. Awful, and like the full-blown apocalypse happens. So 7 is like one of those, I watch it when I get to it, but I'm not like a super big fan. What's for Angel season 5 over Buffy season 7?
Yes.
Ooh, I do too.
Agreed.
Adam, what's your season 7 hot take?
So it's not one of my favorite seasons, I will admit. However, I think one of the big things I really love about season 7, and I kind of wish we got more writing in season 7 to really explore this, was how they kind of really started to build outwards with like the mythology around Buffy. And I really did love that. So like kind of Buffy up to this point, we very much are going in like a forward trajectory. We're following Buffy, and like following her through the Buffyverse. Whereas at this point, I think season 7 really allowed us to build out rather than kind of go forwards. And what I mean by that is, we got stuff like we got like stuff to do with the Shadow Men and like the mythology around that and the first Slayer. And then we got stuff about, the Guardian appeared and giving Buffy the scythe and all of the mythology around, being the Slayer and the power that scythe holds. And I really eat that shit up. I love when they build like that outer world. I love all of that. So lore. I really appreciate. Yeah, give me that lore any day. I love that. So yeah, I really appreciate that. I really, really enjoyed that. And I really wish that we got more writing that was around that, because I always find those episodes so fascinating. But yeah, for me, it starts off really well. It takes a big dip towards the middle when I think they're trying to figure out what the heck they're going to do. And then, it kind of picks back up towards the end, but I just find there's a lot of filler that we have to get through.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So this is sort of arguably, it's sort of like, I think you're right, Quinn. It's one of those last episodes where you get a real sort of dose of classic Buffy humor, and it's sort of half filler and half like furthering the plot, and it's sort of I think more than a lot of the Buffy episodes in season 7 where they kind of all really do blur together because it's so serialized. I think this is one where when Ian asked me to co-host for this episode, I had very clear memories of what happens in it, and that is not always the case with season 7.
This is like the opposite for me, because other than the fact that like Xander dates another bug demon, because this is Xander's like 13th foray into bug people, which I for one am like kind of a fan of, because I sort of view him as a little bit of a cockroach anyway. Regardless, I think this episode lays like a lot of groundwork for like the next arc of this season, right before we really get into all of the doom and gloom stuff. So like we find out that like Giles isn't the first, which was a series of episodes leading up to. We find out that Principal Wood is like very in on this whole Slayer thing, right? His mom was a Slayer, and he's in like a literal blood feud with Spike, which leads us. I have a lot of issues with like the way I think that they tried to tie up loose ends in this episode to set up the groundwork for the next arc, because I like kind of like how whenever Dawn showed up, they were just like, here's Buffy's little sister. They kind of do that with Principal Wood, right? And I kind of get it, because there's this whole foil between if he's going to be a love interest and if he's actually evil, and that's kind of interesting, but it also only lasts like this episode. Like I never remember in this episode that like Buffy goes on a date with Principal Wood. The only thing that I remember is Xander goes on a date with a bug person, which is not at all instrumental to the plot. And then that sets up like whether or not Spike deserves torture, and if his redemption arc is already past the point of like that kind of suffering.
So we're going to get into all of that, because I have a lot of thoughts as well. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. The sort of Xander dating, I think perhaps looking back, the only reason this stood out to me so strongly is because it's the Ashanti episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? Which I didn't get at the time. Like watching it at 12, had no idea. That's crazy.
There was a big, it sort of felt like it was made out to be a bigger moment than it turned out to be. Because it's such a, you're right, it's such a B plot. But anyway, okay, so the episode begins, and we finally get that flashback, kind of filling in what happened between Giles and the Bringer. I would like to get everyone's thoughts on this, because in my notes I just have here, this made me feel like Kathy Bates in Misery. I was like, does everyone have amnesia? This is not what happened in the flashback where like we saw him like practically get his head cut off. There was no shot of him with his lightning Jedi reflexes. This is like, you could not get away with this in streaming and binging TV now. This is like peak early noughties TV, where they were relying on people forgetting what happened 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So that was, I have my notes, Kathy Bates in Misery, but also Giles is very hot with an axe. Cool.
Yeah. I thought about that too, Philip, because I was like, we see that axe like right at his neck. And like, but in the flashback, it's like, nope, he grabs it like up above his head and like, whatever. But yeah, no, I do think that's like that would happen a lot in TV back then, where they'd feel like, man, it's going to be a little different when we show it again.
Nobody can binge this. They won't know.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't matter. So a thing I kept thinking about this episode, like, and it starts here at the beginning. So like Giles is telling them about this, right? He's telling them how he didn't, like how the attack happened and how, he did kill the Bringers and whatever. At times he feels very un-Giles. Like the way he's bragging, and he's like, it was my instincts and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, that didn't feel like, it feels like Giles would be like, oh yeah, I fought them and I defeated them.
The writing for Giles is all over the place this episode. And I want to get into that a little bit later on. He's kind of a downer. And you're right, very un-Giles-like. But yeah, so we have him telling this story to Buffy and the Potentials, bragging about his instincts, and then and then he gets like tripped up and rugby tackled by Spike, which then reveals to him and to the viewer from the cliffhanger last week that Spike has had his chip removed on Buffy's orders, and that just kind of prompts this like ongoing really boring debate about whether Spike should be muzzled or not. And we get this debate basically whether Spike should have the chip or not. And I feel like the show's stance on whether Spike needs to be chipped or not basically changes depending on what the plot is that week.
Yeah.
And it's just really kind of tiresome. Like Buffy says to Giles, you can't beat evil by doing evil. And it's like, well, I mean, like he didn't have a soul, and like it kind of, they were literally like, he was a serial killer called William the Bloody. Right. I feel like it's a bit of an oversimplification to be like, oh, what they did to him was bad, it's in his nature, but also it's not in his nature anymore because I believe he can be good. And it's just, it's more of this heterosexual nonsense where, you know, your favorite girlfriend is trying to defend the absolute dirtbag that she's dating.
And we find out that like Spike killed Principal Wood's mother, which, I mean, bad, and he didn't have a soul at the time, and it's still a horrible thing to do. And he just tried to rape Buffy less than 6 months ago?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing that is, and Spike fans don't get too mad at us. They tend to get a little mad. I love Spike, but that is the thing that makes me the most mad about this season is like, we don't really talk about that.
Never.
And like, we just kind of like the Scoobies at first are a little bit like, well, he did try to do that, but like no one ever says it. And like the Scoobies just kind of stop doing that. And then we just kind of like forget about it. Right. Or they try to act like that.
I guess an argument could be made that like he was out of his mind at the time. Like Spike was on a decline of like going insane and being tortured by the first, probably. Like Buffy is a little bit of an unreliable narrator because even though we see the show view like via other people's points of views, in general, we're still viewing like the entire premise through Buffy's eyes. And so I think that like things could have been going on with Spike hypothetically like way before we knew, but also I'm not a rape apologist. Right. So that's like you still can't get around it.
Right. It's just like, it's the really hard beat that I have with, we do so much with Spike here. And I almost feel like the trigger was like a writing tool to blow past the like rape, because it's like, oh, well then this is the plot because we have this going on. We're going to talk about the trigger and like him being mind controlled or whatever. And it kind of like is a way to get the characters away from talking about like the rape, which like, granted he was doing murder, but like the rape was on, it was like bad. And like, yeah, I don't know. That's the like beat I go back to often with this season is like, but he did do that. Like,
I think, to build on a little bit on what Quinn was saying, I think for me, you know, you're saying people being angry at Spike. I'm kind of more, I would place my anger more on the way that Buffy deals with Spike and treats Spike in this season. You know, she's very apologetic towards him and always finding reason for why we should get behind him. Even though, you know, when Anya they have that fight in that episode and then suddenly she's like, oh no, Anya must die, and stabs a sword through her chest. It's like, oh, hold on a minute. So we're going to forget everything that Spike's done up to this point, but yet Anya does what? Like has one episode when she kind of changes and now we're going to kill Anya. Like, let's talk about everything that Spike's done prior to this. We're going to overlook that Spike. And even when Giles says to her in the bedroom, you know, like, you know, you are Spike's color in your judgment. Like Giles is kind of right. Like that is what is happening.
Adam, yes, that's in my notes is like, Giles is like not wrong here with what he's saying. And I almost wish, I don't know if you all knew this, they did in Lies My Parents Told Me, cut a scene where Giles tells her, I killed Ben to kill Glory. Like he tells her.
I thought of that this episode when Buffy says to Giles, you can't beat evil by doing evil. And I was sat there thinking, I was like, does she know that he killed Ben? Yeah, because basically she's talking about Spike, but she could be talking about what Giles did in Quinn's first episode, The Gift. It's sort of one of the very few allusions to what Giles did in that episode. I think it's maybe not ever directly referred to after it happens, but it made me think of that because the parallels were there.
And like, I almost wish it would have been right here. He's like, well, did you see Glory again? Because no, you didn't, because I killed Ben. Like,
yeah.
Instead, he's just got like two different monologues where everyone's like, I'm going on dates. And he's like, guys, stop it.
and that's it's like you're right, Ian. Like nothing Giles is saying is wrong. Like he's absolutely got a good point, but he's just like being a real bore about it and being a real killjoy while everyone else is like, oh, can we live? And he's like, no, you can't.
No. Right. It's just like they have a lot going on. Like dates seem like I feel like I don't even have that much going on, and I'll be like, oh, it's not a good time for me to date. But like, end of the world kind of does seem like a really bad. Like, all right, do what Willow did. Like, find someone hot to have sex with, and like that's fine. But like.
Yeah, I mean, it does kind of tie in a little bit to the Giles character. I mean, when we think back of like Giles kind of going way back to the start as well, he has very much been like the backbone of the group, like kind of, you know, pulling them together a lot as well and kind of refocusing them. I think that's kind of, for all he's been a bit of a Debbie Downer here, he is kind of trying to refocus them and saying, come on, people, like, you know, girls are going to die here. Let's be real for 10 minutes. And I mean, look at when he left in season 6, like the group fell apart and then, you know, I mean, went to absolute shit and then some. But then when Giles came back, which by the way, one of the best episodes of season 6, you know, then we kind of get the Scoobies coming back together. And then even in season 7, you know, we do get that kind of, the group is coming back together and really strong here. So he has been a Debbie Downer. People are adults. People are allowed to date. He is doing his Giles thing, which is being the backbone and keeping the group together and refocusing them, I guess.
I think that the way that he's written in this episode also loops back around to how, at least I think, that we still view a lot of the episodes through the way that Buffy sees them. So back in like the Halloween episode from season 2, there was that little demon that was like really inconsequential, but he tells her this line and he's like, they're all going to leave you alone. And in this season that happens, and Giles abandoning her with Willow and then coming back, but at a later time, and like Buffy feeling like none of her friends are actually there anymore. I feel like this is kind of one of the first dominoes with Giles in this season, where it's like Giles is not necessarily on Buffy's side, but Giles is on the side of the world. He always has been. He's a watcher. And there's this like chink in the armor of the Scooby Gang. And like, this is a really like intense focus of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, because like I quoted some of his stuff. Like he says, "You rely on him, he relies on you. That's what's affecting your judgment." And he's like, that is completely correct, right? Like, if like, I mean, you brought up like Anya did the thing with the frat house. Buffy was like, "Well, she's got to go." And with Spike, it's like, "No, well, there are these reasons why," and we're always like,
I do like the idea of viewing the show in general, and then sort of specifically scenes like this as being told through Buffy's kind of biased perspective, because it does kind of explain why he is sort of basically just like parroting what the writers want him to say in a way that feels like out of character, because you could interpret that as Buffy being like, oh, Giles is being like such a killjoy right now, and he is. But also it's because, you know, when you've got a friend or a mentor who's telling you something that you don't want to hear, your first gut instinct is to be like, oh, well, they're just being like, you know, they're telling me what to do because they're boring and they're annoying me. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Rather than to actually think like, oh no, they're right, and then they maybe do know what's best for me.
Yeah.
So moving forward, I wanted to point out we meet Chow Ann, who they had referenced in the prior episode. She's walking.
Yeah.
Some real good like early noughties racism.
Not
about that. Yeah.
All of this, I'm like, oh God, like all of the jokes are just that she doesn't know English.
It's broad in a way that Buffy the show was rarely that broad. It was like watching like one of the American Pie or Road Trip movies or something from like that same period. Like when she makes the joke about like being lactose intolerant and having like a stomach ache, and then it just cuts to Buffy like with a really stupid grin on her face.
Yeah,
like the show is better than that, and it was really, that was like not funny at all to rewatch.
Yeah, it's like you said, Philip, it's very of the time, but Buffy didn't usually do that.
Right.
But so moving forward, then we get Xander, I guess it's Home Depot. I don't know. I don't really know where the hell they are, right?
It's this whole scene, it's so perfunctory because it's literally like, okay, we need a B-plot of Xander being a demon magnet again. So, Xander likes tools, right? We'll have him at the tool shop with all the tool boys, and there's a tool demo. And Ashanti is there. Go. And that's literally it.
Yeah.
They don't even give him like a reason to like actually start interacting with her. He just like, it's like, oh, I'm Xander. I totally have the right to go up to Ashanti and start mansplaining rape to her. That's in character.
I think in my brain when I remembered this, they were like, this wouldn't make sense at all, but they were at the construction site he worked at, and like that's why he like talked to her. But I guess that really wouldn't make sense. Just why would this random person just be on a construction site?
She claims that she's hanging kayaks, right? Is that what she says she needs the ropes for? Kayaks weigh like 10 pounds. And he's like, oh, well, that's not going to be strong enough.
It's like, a fun little bit of very lazy foreshadowing there. I get it. You know, we need to introduce this lady love interest just to get that like B story going. So like whatever.
I do feel like with Ashanti, it really feels like they were like, we have her for one day, so her scenes will be 5 minutes, and that's it.
But you know what? Like, I wish they just leaned on more that she was Ashanti, because the conversation here is so awkward. When, like, you know, and he says, like, oh, like, you know, want to get coffee later? See, I can be random as well. Like, I cringed so hard, I nearly passed out. But, like, I just kind of wish, you know, like, even if she was just, you know, if Ashanti burst into song, I would have been here for it. I would have just accepted it. You know, if she even said, like, you know, baby, I don't always use a rope, but I'm always here for a good time. If she just went with that and just went with it, I would have been here for it. I would have lived that Ashanti dream. But yeah, you're right. It feels like we had it for 5 minutes and we didn't really get to explore her character much at all.
I mean, I feel like you can't really overstate, like in 2000, what was this, 2002, 2003, Ashanti was a big cameo. And they do like less than nothing with it. Like this could have been anybody from central casting. There was no like, it was like, oh, look, it's Ashanti. Oh, she's going to be a big deal, except no, psych. But okay, yeah, like we'll get back to that in a little bit.
Right. So
then Buffy is snooping around Principal Wood's office. I just want to say it's so stupid for him to keep a cabinet of knives in his actual office. And then that just made me think about how Giles had like a full armory in a public school library. And I have to suspend my disbelief. He's like, that's the show.
This scene is so melodramatic and delicious though. Like the dramatic scene where he like looks over his shoulder at the end after she walks out. It's like, I could eat it with a spoon. More of that.
They were really leaning into, oh, he might be a villain.
I have a question for you guys, because I couldn't remember, because like I knew this because I've watched the show a million times. Was this the first time we see that he does keep those weapons there, or did the viewers already know?
I have a feeling that it had been shown maybe one time.
Yeah, I agree.
But this was a relatively like new thing, because before this episode, Buffy had never even like really considered him romantic interest. So this was like kind of a random pairing anyway, that was literally just done so that we could have that will he, won't he, is he not moment, which I dig, but also was superfluous because it's never addressed again. Like they don't ever do anything. I think it was kind of a bad decision.
I mean, I think him and Faith kind of made more sense anyway as a parent.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll get to that.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, we have this, like, Quinn, you're right. It is a very dramatic, like, it's like they're playing music, and then he, like, pulls out the knife and cleans it from blood and, like, puts it with his other bazillion knives.
Scrumptious.
And, like, asks her on a date. They're going on a date. She's like, yes. And then we cut to Buffy and Willow discussing it, which I do really like.
Buffy, a promotion?
It's so mean, but so funny how everyone laughs at how shit Buffy is at her job.
Yes, it keeps going back, that joke. I love the repetition of it. And every time Buffy's destroyed it, everyone's response of just laughing in her face. Love it.
She's just badass to the world, but inside her group of friends just dunks.
I thought it was a really, really cute scene where Buffy and Willow are like folding laundry and just talking about their love lives. Because again, it's one of those things where we don't have time for this after this episode really moving forward. We don't have time for just funny, friendly conversations. And it's progressing on what happened in the episode that preceded it, The Killer in Me, where Buffy and Willow were kind of having a lovely chat about, you know, Willow maybe dating Kennedy. And then this time it's Willow sort of having that teasy friend conversation about, you know, Buffy maybe wanting to date Principal Wood and how he's a really good option because he's, you know, 100 years younger than her last two boyfriends.
I love that line.
Yeah. I mean, like you and Quinn said, like, I love them like just like ragging on her. And because like Xander walks in and he's like, oh, he's like 10 years older than you, isn't she? And Willow immediately is like, that's 100 years younger than normal. Like, I love that friendship when they get to like do that. Because like you guys said, we just don't, the season just doesn't have room for it, especially after this. Like there's no room for like cute moments between them being best friends. And they're like those actors at this point, they know how to do that. Like, they are very good at like the best friend chemistry.
And Buffy does that thing where, you know, when like people start, you know, ragging on you, and so you get defensive, and she's like, Willow holds Kennedy's hands under the table and thinks nobody notices. And it's like, she just like, she gets really defensive and just sort of like claps back, and it's so funny. And they're just dragging her, and it's adorable.
Willow has a really good line in this when Buffy's like rambling about like the wicked guys she attracts. And Willow says, I wrote it down, I'm going to wait for that sentence to come around again before I jump on. And that was really good.
Yeah.
And who among us has not been that friend spiraling? And then, you know, your best friend is like, I'm going to wait for this to just like play out, and then I'm going to tell you what I think.
So what Philip means is, this is Ian in my DMs all the time, is what Philip means.
I was trying to be diplomatic. I didn't want to name names, but yes.
It's true, though. It's like proper friendship, isn't it? Where you're taking the piss out of each other, you're ripping it out of each other, and yeah, it just feels really authentic. And as you said, by season 7, it should do, right? Yeah. And yeah, it feels that. And I just love for how small the scene is. It's so impactful for them as characters. I love it.
And it's also like a little bit of a fourth wall break, because Buffy does literally have 0 qualifications to be a high school counselor.
Yeah.
None.
Let's not forget.
Like, girl, you're not getting promoted.
Yeah, no. And she's like, we've seen her be bad at her job throughout the season. Right?
So many times.
I mean, oh god, yeah, I love the girl, but she barely graduated high school. It's adorable. Okay, so moving on from, I mean, I could just live in that scene, but moving on. Then you have Andrew setting up the microwave, another really important plot in the episode. The first appears to him in the form of Jonathan. And I'm kind of reminded here that the first is actually not very good at manipulating people. It's just very lazy monologuing. Although there is another great line here where he's like, oh, Buffy will never accept you, you're a murderer. And he's like, confidentially, a lot of her people are murderers. Like Willow, Spike, Anya, like even Giles, as we've just reminded ourselves. Like, a lot of people in that squad are stone cold killers.
I think it's right what you said about the first as well. Like, I think the show wants us to think he's a really good manipulator, but the reality is he's kind of not, or she, or whatever guise it takes. But I think it's really interesting as well how Jonathan like asks obviously Andrew to get the gun, and yet this is another episode written by Jana Spencer, who wrote Earshot, who Jonathan had a gun in the tower. I just think it's a really interesting link that they made there. Yeah. But I think with the first. Okay, I'm going to go on one. So what I really wish they did with the first, if you guys all seen Wonder Woman?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to spoil something, but here we go. So, you know, when we get the reveal, you know, when you get the question of Wonder Woman of like, oh, does evil exist in the heart of all men? And then you see it's kind of Ares who's been whispering in the ears of people through time and affecting. I kind of wish that's what we got with the first, because the only kind of guys we really see it is in, you know, we get to see a big focus on it in season 7, right? And obviously we get the other episode earlier on with the first. And we kind of we still, even by the end of season 7, don't really get a lot of background history on the first. We kind of just get like this exploration. It would have been so nice to see what else has the first been up to during its time, because this is the first evil, right? So what if we got a look back where the first was like, you know, there's other Hellmouths, there's other things happening around the world. What if the first was influencing, exactly, let's not forget Cleveland. But what if the first was there influencing other enemy and really kind of manipulating, and shows how much of a stronger force it is? Because the first only exists if it can maintain evil, right? That's its whole point. That's what it feeds off. But yeah, we kind of just didn't get that. And as you said, Philip, I think it thinks that it's a really good manipulator, but the reality is it's touch and go.
I think the thing that frustrates me the most about the first is that it should be a very basic, straightforward big bad, right? Like it can appear, especially we saw the first way back in the first and second seasons, and it was way better at being a manipulator because it wasn't out and proud about the fact that it was trying to manipulate you. It was just appearing as somebody that was dead that you loved. And that should be a very simple connection to make. It should be able to be it should be able to manipulate literally anybody, because there's someone that has passed on that we love and have that connection with that we want to hear from. And is it the first evil that projects his choice at some point, right?
Yeah, well, like they don't like say one way, but yeah, it's in Conversations with Dead People, it's like Joyce. Yeah.
I think that's the smartest thing that they ever did with the first. Like, that's what they should have really leaned into, as opposed to just, I'm going to show up as this dead person and be sassy and talk shit to you. Like, it could have been so much more nuanced. And the concept of the villain is so much more basic than that. They could have done so much more with it as far as storytelling devices.
And I mean, you're right, because like Joyce, like if it's going to appear to Buffy, like Joyce or Angel are like the ones that should be appearing to her as to like taunt her.
Yeah.
Jonathan, okay, sure, but like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. And I mean, I always go back to like the season 7 premiere. That ending is one of my favorites, where they have every villain like talking to Spike. But it would have been so cool if that happened to Buffy, because they're like big like hurdles she had to overcome that like were like a problem to her. And like, I wish we could have gotten the first doing that to Buffy, because like, all right, if it's not Joyce all the time, then like being a villain that was like such a big threat to her would be scarier, right?
I think the first evil it's sort of one of those things where it's a great idea, and then the execution, when it comes to like, what budget do we have? What actors can we bring in? You know, Angel is, you know, busy over in LA having his spin-off series. He can't be on set every couple of days, you know. And then also, I think one of the reasons why they never had, you know, Amber Benson come back as Tara as the first is maybe they didn't want to have an actor's final appearance on the show be as, you know, like someone beloved, like, you know, Tara or Joyce, to have that face kind of then be associated with a villain, as opposed to, you know. Wait,
I have something to say to that, because Amber Benson, when she was on the podcast, up until like, I want to say it was like the week before, because the costume designer, when he does his outros, he has some of the scripts, and he had the script, and the script he had for Conversations with Dead People was Tara. It was Willow talking to Tara.
Oh, really?
And Amber Benson backed out because she said she didn't want that to be Tara's final appearance on the show, was like as an evil character.
Right.
Which I get as just from like a professional wrestler, I guess, and we get all up in our fields about like how we want to be portrayed as baby faces and heels. I kind of get that, but also just from a storytelling standpoint, it would have been so much more heart-wrenching if we did hear something, because like, other than that, we know that the first has the ability to drive people literally insane. And yet throughout the course of this season, we never actually see it used to that extent.
Yeah, there's a lot of wasted potential. But so we're going to move on to the next scene, which I do like. It's a
This is a great scene.
Buffy and Anya in the bathroom. I will say, as the like painfully single one in all of my friend groups and in my family, Anya's bitterness like made me feel replenished. I was like, when she says she's not jealous, and then she's like, "Do you hear the shrill tone of my voice? Of course I'm jealous." Like, I was like, "What
I love though is Anya is like the bitter, jealous one, but she's still like, you know, enough of a grown-up and enough of a good friend to help Buffy wash the blood out of her clothes for her date.
Which is an excellent callback.
It is an excellent callback. You're absolutely right. I have that. It's not actually blood. It's pizza from when Dawn was stealing Buffy's clothes in, what was it, Conversations with Dead People?
And Dawn says,
that's the one.
She'll probably think it's blood.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's when the show is firing on all cylinders, because it knows that the fans will pick up on those little details.
Yep.
But yeah, Anya is kind of, they shit on her all the time, but she's like, I absolutely, from of all the characters in this episode, I'm like, no, like her emotional kind of journey of like being really angry at Xander, but then worried about him. And then like once she finds out he's okay, being angry at him again, it's like, that's real.
Right?
Yep.
It is.
Agreed.
None of this like, you know, all this like pearl clutching over whether Spike should have a chip or not. Like that's boring. Just give me more of like Anya spiraling and that I'm here for it. Also, this scene just really reminded me, I mean, Quinn, I think you're a bit younger than us, but maybe you'll remember in the early noughties when girls would just wear lingerie and jeans and call it an outfit.
Oh yeah, like just the lace camisoles.
The camisole and then the huge jeans.
Yeah. Well, and then Buffy at one point is even like, traditionally one wears something over this. And I was like, but do you?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, she looked great.
Yeah.
They both look amazing.
I was thinking like Buffy spoiled a lot of that for me in shows now, when it's like, ooh, that's supposed to be their underwear. I'm like, I don't know, Buffy wore that. Like, that's a top, right?
I mean, come on, like I watched Charms. They were vanquishing demons in like teddy camisoles every week.
Oh yeah. Buffy's Leatherface basically define my personality.
I do like that this scene kind of like ends with Anya being like, no, you should go. I have to pee. Like because there's only one bathroom in that house. She runs into Spike. They have like a awkward interaction.
Oh, another total non-conversation, and I have no idea what they're saying. I was so bored. I'm sorry. I can't. Was that when she's like, oh, I'm going on a date. Maybe you should try going on a date. And he's like, maybe I will go on a date. And she's like, maybe you will. Maybe I will. Maybe I am. And he's like, maybe I am too. And,
they're both trying to convince each other that they're both in these like much healthier places when Buffy's literally about to go on a date with a man that she's never considered romantically before, ever.
Right. Yeah. But
something about this scene that I did find interesting, well, not interesting as much as just like kind of funny, is that in order to signify that Spike has a soul now, I feel like the costume designers decided that they were going to put him to stuff that was not black, but like black adjacent. Like Spike's not evil anymore. Let's put him in a drab brown sweater. That'll really get him going. So I appreciate it. But once he goes back to Angel, he's still just in like a black crew neck with the trench coat on again. So we backpedal, but I appreciate the effort.
Yeah.
They experimented with Spike's fashion this season. I think the only time it worked was when they put him in the really tight blue Versace top.
The sweater.
Ian and I interviewed Matt Van Dyne, the costume designer, and we were just like giving him all of the flowers for putting James Masters in that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Brain. The rest of the stuff he wears this season, it's like ugly camo, like overshirts, everything. It's very like straight menswear, isn't it? It's just like here are hideous earth tones. There's the long sleeve thing he wears in the episode. There's like and again, it's very like period appropriate. It's got like a weird tribal pattern on like the rear shoulder.
Yeah.
At one point, it's
early 2000s.
It's hideous.
I was like, has he got that on backwards? Like, I just didn't understand that at all.
So then we cut to Xander and Ashanti on their date. And like you said, Philip, there's kind of nothing here. It's like he lies about getting a red eye. It's a hot cocoa.
Hit me. Yeah. Very like corny rom-com dialogue about coffee. But again, I cannot let it go unnoticed. Again, with the naughtiest fashion, she is wearing a Baroque corset under a crocheted shawl to get coffee. Chaos.
It really is.
What's happening?
It was a weird time for fashion.
It was.
It was such a weird time for fashion.
And then like a very sensible side pony.
Like she's ready for all weather.
Anything.
It makes me think about Ashley Tisdale on the red carpet. Very bad.
You're so right. It's the unhinged layering that was going on around that time. Yes. It's like
hands up, I did a lot of the layering.
I went to skating rinks. Okay, I was guilty. I was sent home once because I didn't wear sleeves.
Really?
Scandal.
Yeah, so scandalous. How dare you show your shoulders in the Midwest?
Oh my goodness.
Jesus Christ.
I was just going to say that the mention of macho points as well just killed me. Like, that is so chocolate. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, if I lost like macho points, like Xander, someone needs to tell you that you never had them.
But like, So we got back to the house. Dawn, Kennedy, and Willow are researching Robin Wood. Anya, again, like I've said this a lot this season. Anya, they definitely like after Selfless didn't have much to do with her character. But she still steals like every scene she's in because like Emma Caulfield's delivery is just perfect.
Yeah.
She like never misses.
100%.
And I love when she's like, so then like they're like researching Robin Wood, Giles comes in and I wrote down Anya because Anya's mad about the drawings he did, which are kind of a throwback to Hush, but again feels almost too silly for Giles with like the silly blood. But Anya has this good line and she's like, didn't you hear? Everybody has a date. Buffy has a date. Willow's been completely making out with this girl. Xander's out with some hardware store whore. It's Date Fest 2003.
I love that she's just like points at Kennedy and goes, this girl?
Yeah.
Like, you don't even get a name, Kennedy.
That one.
Yeah.
She's like a stand-in for the Tara stands there, like, but this girl.
And it's just like, Anya's like bitter, it's pitch perfect. I just love it.
But it's right as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to disagree with you, Ian. I kind of, even though Giles is really a drain this episode. I quite like the funny callback to him just being really terrible at drawing.
I mean, fair.
Like he does the exact same like weird stick figure Buffy that he did in Hush, in just like a triangle for a skirt. That so you know it's a girl. And I just I got a kick out of that.
And Giles gives one of his, which he will give numerous times, like, "What do you mean you're going on dates? This is not a good time for dates."
It's almost like a callback to like season 1 Giles when he was super stuffy and tweedy before they kind of put more nuance and layers into him. It's very like...
I definitely think this episode's supposed to be kind of a callback to Never Kill a Boy on a First Date from season 1, because that's when she delivers the like, if the apocalypse comes, beat me, because he's like, you can't go on a date, and she's like, Superman was Clark Kent. He did other things. I just want to go on one date. And
he did just get back from the UK, so he has been surrounded by other stuffy magic types for the last several years.
That's true.
I mean, that's so true.
I mean, it's just, oh my God, we are lousy with stuffy magic types. Just like weird stuff.
Philip speaks truth. That is total truth.
So we get the scene of Buffy and Wood walking through another Sunnydale dark alley, because there's a lot of them. And you're right. They really do. I forget which one of you said this earlier, but they really do, like, up until right after the scene, push the like almost like mustache twirling villain of him, because it does feel like a complete setup. And he's like right over there, and the alley's like pitch black, and it's like, what restaurant is in the middle of this pitch black alley?
Right.
They get jumped by vampires. And I do like when the show does this. It's so silly, but I do like it when it's like, she's like, you set me up, you son of a... But then they like cut off before she says the curse, because she sees that he is also slaying the vampires. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about as well, though, like the first clip you see, the vampire that walks into the alleyway is the exact same vampire from The Gift. That is a clip lifted from The Gift and put into this episode.
I read that in the trivia.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
No.
As soon as I saw it, yeah. Because I've seen The Gift like 500 times. It's like one of my favorite episodes. And as soon as I saw that vampire, I was like, I know him. And then looked it up and I was like, oh yeah, they've literally lifted it out of The Gift and then put it, you know, like the opening of The Gift when the guy's been chased into the alleyway and the vampire kind of walks around the corner and then Buffy comes out and she's like, are you guys having a... Yeah, it's the same vampire. It's that one clip. Yeah.
I know that they like reuse extras, and I always like to look at that for little Easter eggs, but I did not realize they use the exact same clip.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I always look up like episode trivia before recording. That was one of the episode trivias.
So was the budget for this season just like basically nil?
So a lot of people have been saying that they, like, I meant to look this up, but like the reason the potentials, like in this episode, the house is supposed to be crowded with potentials. We only see...
And we don't see any of them.
No.
We only see Amanda Chow-Ann, who's new, and Kennedy, and that's it. And then like 10 other potentials that are actually living there, but we don't see them. And it's because they didn't have the budget to have them in all the episodes.
I'm glad we do get to see Kennedy, though, because the look that she has for this episode.
Yes.
She looks small.
Yes.
The spiky bun and the button down.
She looks like the world's hottest bartender.
Yes.
Yes. Like I would tip her $50 whole dollars.
I mean, I had that in my notes. I was going to save it till the end to bring it up, but she looks so good.
Yeah. So Buffy sees that Wood is slaying the vampire, and he's like, oh, we have a lot to talk about. The restaurant's nearby. Then we cut back to Xander's date. He has apparently been telling her about leaving Anya at the altar.
I mean...
Too soon to make this joke.
Has anyone here been on a date with a man and he's talked about his ex for like the entire time? This is the most realistic and relatable that Xander's ever been.
But not where he's like, oh, I literally just left her at the altar. Like,
you know that he would be telling everyone he meets about that, and he'd be on Reddit like, am I the asshole? I left my girlfriend at the altar. Am I the asshole?
Which is why it's so fitting that Lissa's like, yeah, I'm only killing you because you seem so nice.
Honestly, it's a good thing that Ashanti turns out to be a demon, because there is some real pick-me behavior on show where she's like, well, it sounds like you just weren't meant to be together, and I mean, if I were her, I wouldn't make you feel bad about it. And it's like, okay, red flags.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, you're just evil. That makes sense. Yeah.
I think it's classic Xander in the fact that a girl's into him and therefore all logic is lost. Like if you're talking about your ex and then she's responding to you like, oh, well, and then still wants to go on a further date with you, invite you somewhere else, red flags, explosions going off, fireworks everywhere, something is wrong. But then Xander's just like, oh yeah, well, she's into me, so all logic goes out the window. I'm like, come on, Xander.
Yeah, this is not not the first time that he has been duped by like a demon bug person. And you'd think that he would learn from his lesson. But as we have seen from the past 7 straight years, he does not.
He does not. He does not.
Nope.
So we get Buffy and Wood on their date. He reveals that. So I don't know if any of you remember. I do remember there being like rumors about Nikki Wood coming back. I can't remember if they were rumors that he was her son or just rumors, because I remember it being like, oh, Nikki Wood is going to come back. Like people kept saying that on like Buffy posting boards back in the day. And I remember being like, when he talks about this, immediately being like, oh, his mom, we're getting that Nikki Wood is his mom. Like I remember like making that connection pretty like immediately. Because like he specifically says it wasn't a demon, it was a vampire. Like, you know, my mother was a slayer. I died when I was 4, so she could have been younger. I like it. I do like it. I don't know how you all feel.
I loved it in the moment when like, but I don't think I knew until like that scene where he said it, and I was like, that is so cool, because exactly like Adam was saying earlier, this is the season where we start to learn more about the wider Slayer world. And as I was rewatching it, I was like, wait, like why? Like, because Buffy is like obviously flawed. And she sort of like, has all these questions, and I'm like, well, why wouldn't Buffy surely Buffy would know like who all of the like the recent Slayers in like the 20th century were, and then I'm like, oh, actually no, she really wouldn't, because the girl does not read. If it was Kendra, she would know all the names, all the dates, everything. Yeah. But Buffy just like did not care, so it tracks with her that she would be like, there was a Slayer before me. What? Like,
and it's a bit of a red herring, because they intentionally like didn't have him wear the trench coat that he takes off of her this episode.
Yeah. Yes. That's why they put him in the hideous other stuff, is because they wanted to. And then it's a bigger moment, obviously, in the later episode where he kind of like reclaims the coat once he's broken his brainwashing. But I just remember feeling like in that moment I was like, oh, the son of a Slayer. That's like every self-insert fanfic I wrote in that time was like, that was me. I was the son of a Slayer. So I like,
is he gay and British too?
And you know what? Like there is like a split second in that scene where you think that maybe something could potentially happen between them, because it's like, oh, here is somebody who
there's chemistry.
He knows your secret identity. You know, he's not going to be threatened by your power, and he wants to fight alongside you. Like this could be a healthy relationship. So of course Buffy's going to fucking tank it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that because it's Buffy. She's like, do you have Slayer powers? When like that's never once happened. If there's one thing she should know, is that that's not a possibility.
And I like seeing her be like, she's like, holy crap. Like she's kind of like, oh, cool. Like she's like surprised by it and like interested in it. And I kind of like, we don't often get to see Buffy excited and curious, and it's like cool seeing her like asking him questions. I mean, also he is gorgeous, so like,
oh my god,
he
looks like he's wearing like eyeliner because his lashes are just that dark, and I could not stop looking at it. Maybe that's why I was like, oh, is there chemistry between Wood and Buffy, or is it that he's just like so attractive that I'm being pulled into the scene?
I think, I mean, if he was looking like that and me over the table, geez. But
feeding me pears, like
I watched 5 seasons of Lucifer before I realized he was a Menadiel, because he's 52. I Googled it, and he looks exactly the same as he did 20 years ago in this episode. My brain can't make it work.
I mean, even in 24 as well, when he's David Palmer's brother, I was like, oh, hello.
But, is he in 24 as well?
Yeah, he's David Palmer's brother, so he's like the president, or trying to become the president for one of the seasons. But I mean, I agree, getting back to kind of like the point, I love the reveal, and I love when the show does a callback and does it really well. So like, I think one of my favorite things as well is when, do you remember that in season 4 when Tara and Willow are trying to do the demon locator spell, and you see Tara put the dust under the bed, and you don't find out why until season 5, the episode Family. And I love that shit. So when this calls back to It's Fool for Love in season 5, right? When Buffy's talking to Spike and he's kind of talking about how he killed the other Slayers, and then you get that call back again. It's kind of, I just love that connection back to previous Buffy stuff that we've seen before. It's really great writing for me. It's highlights of the show.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So then we get the Andrew. Okay, so this is like, there's a little too much. There's like too many plots that are only getting like 5 minutes going on in this episode for me. And the Andrew one especially, I like it. It's got all the fun characters, right? It's Andrew, Anya, Willow, but like especially that, it feels like we accomplished nothing.
It's again like this that little bit of plot could have been fitted into any episode of this season. It's sort of like just a little bit of we need to remind everyone that the first is the big bad and kind of tie this into the overarching sort of serialization, whatever. But I mean, everything that didn't work in the first scene with the first earlier works for me here because Andrew is just being so funny.
Yeah, he's really good.
And that it's that moment when Jonathan says, "Are you wearing a wire?" And you just have Willow like throwing off the headphones. Like, oh my god, no! It reminded me of in Sex and the City when Carrie's like, "Oh my god, he's online. Can he see me?" And it was like that perfect like mix of slightly silly, but also then it goes quite scary because Jonathan's made up to look like he's dead. He has that really creepy line. So many dead girls.
That makeup is so good.
Yeah, I love that. Love that moment.
And I do like, because Andrew, the thing that I love about Andrew is he has that nervous gay energy where like he just won't shut up. But like I relate, it's like you're nervous, so you won't shut up. So you talk more, and he's just constantly nervous, so he's constantly having word vomit. And
when he's talking about Buffy's underwear drawer,
right when he's
so stupid.
And like, because he's gay, he's not like, oh, it's hot. He's just like, she had some very nice pieces. Like, he's not like. And the first is Jonathan is like, show me. And he's like, well, I didn't take it. And it's like, the gun, idiot. I do love that.
I'm very fond of Andrew, but other than showing the first being like all evil and gross, this, you're right. Like, this didn't really necessarily like do anything or like advance the plot at all, as much as like the makeup was awesome.
There should have been like something he learned, right? Like maybe just one thing, because like the thing he learns is like they're not ready for Spike yet, but like that's nothing, right? Like
right. Don't record the first evil. Like that seems to be the main takeaway.
Yeah, I'm like, okay.
Right, sure.
They were writing the script and they were like, oh, we don't have like Andrew or Willow or Anya or Kennedy or Dawn doing anything this week, so we need to find something.
And they're like, well, we have to pay them because they're in that first scene. So,
well, and I understand. So the trio were like a bunch of idiots on the whole, but like theoretically, they're supposed to be super smart, right? Like between the three of them, they had this whole like Death Star vibe or like wannabe Death Star vibe. And that was part of the comedic relief. And also the horror that was like the trio of them is that they were incredibly stupid and also dangerous.
Right.
So Andrew just here, he kind of like freely gives up the plan to the first. That like they're like completely gives it away because he's so nervous. And I just feel like he would have been in scenarios like this that are high pressure enough at this point to not just give the first literally everything all at once.
He managed to keep from Jonathan that he was going to murder Jonathan. You know?
Right. Yeah. So he did carry out that plan. Right. But I guess he can only be smart for Warren. Like,
yeah.
I will say that like I did like the beat of like when Willow's like, wait, I do hear something, and Kennedy's like, no, we all hear it. Like it's like throughout the house. I thought that was like cool, and that it appears as like because the makeup's getting like progressively worse, but by the time he's in the basement, he's like full like zombie dead person makeup.
I love it.
I do think that beat was like really cool, and like Amanda just like screaming and them all being like, oh shit. I do like that. While I ragged on this like plot line, I do like that beat.
The makeup and then Danny Strong kind of, because obviously Danny Strong, who we knew for so much as like one of the comic relief characters, then delivering this really sinister speech. It kind of, I think it just sort of shocks you into being affected by it, even if overall the story doesn't really serve much purpose. Yeah. So then, we go from a super scary bit to just more silliness. So literally, like, we don't even see Xander getting knocked out or tied up or anything. He's just already tied to the wheel, and you are left to fill in the blanks yourself. And I think maybe she makes like some reference to, oh, thanks, like I picked the right ropes, like you were right, and it's whatever.
Right? She's so nice and polite the entire time, which just reinforces what I always say, which is that niceness does not necessarily equal kindness.
Fair.
You're absolutely right. I do like, though, that in between, like, incapacitating Xander and tying him to the wheel and hoisting him up with a pulley, she's had time for a costume change.
Yeah.
I assume it was to make her look more demonic or a little bit more like Aaliyah in Queen of the Damned. She kind of just looks like a belly dancer.
Yeah.
It's just more generic, like, early 2000s fashion. I don't really get the point of it, but it's cuter than the corset and the shawl.
And she looks good in it. She looks good.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of, she's like kind of gleeful, but then we just kind of cut back to the Summers house, and Dawn's pulling off the wire on Andrew. Giles comes in and is pissed, right?
Yeah.
He's like he's like mad everyone's on a date, and then Willow gets a text and she says it's like part of their like code, which I was like, that makes sense that they're like, they live in this town full of demons. They would have like a code.
I think this is one thing I like about...
Exactly, but how?
Yeah, at what point? At what point did he send the text? Because this is part of with Xander only getting 2 scenes really in his storyline. At what point did that happen? I do like that in the final season they're finally acknowledging that mobile phones are a thing.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that, that a group of friends who are always in danger would have a sort of system of secret code messages they send to each other. So why the fuck can't Willow remember what they are?
Right.
But I mean,
Willow would have been the one to come up with the system. So why can't she remember?
I mean, yes, but in the same breath, it doesn't make sense for Buffy to leave her mobile phone at home.
I think that tracks with Buffy's like absent-mindedness, though. Like her, like
she can't even drive a car.
Yeah, like because I think she would be like kind of annoying about technology, where she'd be like, I don't like. She gave Dawn a cell phone, but I think she would hate having a cell phone.
She'd be like, I can't get my Uber to work. Can you do it? Can you call the Uber? Can you do that for me? I just don't know. I don't know. Technology hates me. Basically, like me trying to get onto this call earlier. That's what
doesn't use cars, doesn't use guns, doesn't use smartphones.
Exactly. So like Willow gets that she's like, it either means he's having a good time or he's about to be eaten. And I like the beat of Giles is like, something's eating Xander's head, and Anya's like, hey, that's something. Like,
yeah.
I just love her. Spike offers to go track her because he said he knows her scent. Shows up at the date. Philip, what is she saying? What's the really line she's delivering?
Robin is feeding her like poached pears, and she says, this might be the nicest thing I've had in my mouth. Which, I mean, Buffy, the show has done that a couple of times. Like, they've even had Dawn say that about a cheeseburger.
Yeah.
It's like a party in my mouth. It's like, okay, early 2000s, like, we can make better oral sex jokes than this. Come on. And although, again, if he wanted to dip a pear in sauce and feed it to me,
let's be real.
And then she literally like looks up with like a mouthful of dessert, and Spike's just standing there like a fucking creep. It's like, at what point were you going to say something, Spike? You just stood there watching her eat off his spoon. Like, you were such a pervert.
I do like the cut to them just in the car, like awkward. Like, I really like that cut because, like, that would be fucking awkward, right? Like, they were kind of on a date, and then like her ex shows up, and it's like, well, we gotta go fight a demon together. Like,
so this is when Ashanti has basically like been bleeding Xander onto the seal so that she can get her own like Turrican bodyguard, I suppose. Which raises a question. If anybody's blood opens the seal, why was the first so insistent on it being Spike? Why couldn't they just kidnap literally anyone?
Okay, so I feel like season 7 had a lot of like plot lines they threw out there that maybe they were going to do something with, and they just never did. I think Spike was going to like, it feels like with the trigger, and even in this episode, the first says we're not ready for Spike yet. But like, what the fuck does that mean? Because like, when were they ready? There's not like a beat when it feels like they are ready, because the trigger goes away. It only comes back when Robin Wood kind of like makes it come back. In Lies My Parents Told Me. I feel like that might have been a plot line they were going to do something with, but like, because it doesn't make sense. Okay, then why Spike? Why not just like capture 2 random people and like leave them out on the seal? Like 2 people that have nothing to do with Buffy, so that way she won't know, and just, bleed them out.
Yeah, I think that season 7 is probably the only season of Buffy where they introduce lots of like little mysteries and actually don't have like a plan for how they're all going to come together. I think that every other season of the show, everything fits together, and on a rewatch you can see how it all works. And it's only in this one where like they start off with such a hugely ambitious plan, and for the most part it comes together and the finale is great, but there's a lot of like muddling sort of missing pieces in the middle.
I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that like it has to be somebody that's been directly influenced by the Hellmouth, because it's not like they're just bringing like any passersby and like bleeding them out. It's like it's Jonathan, and then it's Xander, and then they want to do Spike. Like I don't know if there's something, I don't know. Magic is weird. I
love that explanation. Yeah, magic is weird. That actually covers so much.
It does. They show up, they have their fight. Wood finds out that Spike is a vampire because his vamp face goes on as Ashanti's choking him. Buffy pretty quickly disposes of Ashanti. She beheads her. We see her like demon head rolling around. It's weird because like there always has to be a fight in an episode of Buffy, right? They're never not gonna have, but like the two fight scenes here are very quick and very inconsequential.
Lazy.
And like the way it was shot and blocked and everything just seemed so stilted. Like Wood was literally just standing in the doorway until it was his turn to have a line of dialogue, going, "He's a vampire." And then he's like, "Oh, I'm in this scene. I should probably be helping." And that's when he like gets Xander down from the rope. And it's just it's very like, Buffy, you hit Ashanti, and then Spike, you hit Ashanti, and then Buffy, you behead Ashanti, and then Xander, you have a joke, and hey, we just read a scene of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
From just like a combat stance, it wasn't super well choreographed. Like at some point, Ashanti kicks Spike in the gut, and instead of doubling over, he does like a full-on like backflip, which is the opposite of like where that momentum would even be going. It looks cool, but it makes no sense at all. And I don't know if that's just like a specific thing that I hate, but.
No, I had in my notes that the choreography seemed very stilted and sort of almost like an afterthought. So I'm glad that somebody who actually knows what they're talking about.
Professional,
with
yes.
Step on up.
I hated it.
First of all, Xander gets pretty deeply stabbed, and yet that wound heals pretty quickly. I'm like, the whole time watching, I'm thinking, why is nobody addressing that wound? Like that was a pretty deep cut when she shoved that dagger in.
And Wood's like, "Oh, I think he's going to be okay." And it's like, it's like doctor as well as how do you know?
Yeah, like paging Dr. Wood. But I mean,
he could have pierced his kidneys. You don't know, like.
Yeah, but as well, to be fair, Robin Wood did give us that sticking a vampire with one hand whilst holding the other hand out for a high five during that fight scene. I mean, that was did you notice that? Like staking the vampire with his left hand, but his right hand was held out, like as if he was just waiting for a high five. It was really interesting, like technique, I guess, but hey ho.
The rules about how the actual Hellmouth opens too are so hilarious to me from episode to episode, because like Jonathan couldn't open it because he was too small and he didn't have like enough blood. And like the pigs that they tried to use before that, which are not even people and never really gets explained, also did not have enough blood. But like Xander has enough from one stomach wound to open like one arm, like it's a star U or something, instead of just this like weird seal. And then to close it later on, it's like, it doesn't want blood, it wants tears. But in this instance, it's like you just cut the blood off and the arm smacks down and like cuts this Ubervamp's arm off. One, excellent use of CGI. Two, not incredibly in sync with the rest of the plot.
Yes. I mean, we all love the show, but I do feel like their rules, unlike their magical stuff, is kind of like willy-nilly. Like, So we cut back to the house. Anya is very nervous and pacing, and she has a very good line of, "My feelings are interchangeable but intense," which is amazing for him. Love her.
She has my favorite exchange of this entire episode with Dawn whenever they finally get back.
Oh, wait, what is it when they get back? Because they get back a beat later.
So whenever she's like, "Is Xander all right?" And Dawn's like, "I don't know, he looks okay." And she's like, "Damn it." It's the best. And then it's obviously like immediately followed by Xander having like a 5-minute joke about how he wants to turn himself gay. But before that, it was like the best part of the episode.
Yeah.
Back then I liked this joke, but it is not great.
So it's you know how we've kind of been saying throughout that this episode has felt a bit like a throwback to a much earlier season. I feel like Xander here, this is like a season 1 or 2 very toxic joke that I feel like they'd written Xander to be so much more mature by this point that this was just like, oh, shut the fuck up, Xander. Like, this is even you know that this is not funny. And then like Willow being the gay friend who's like, oh, my straight friend's making gay jokes again, and it's my job to laugh, I guess. I even at the time I was like, Scott Bakula.
Yes.
And then like the fey little smile that Andrew gets on his face, like, oh, I'm gay and a nerd, I get that.
Yeah.
But I don't say
it. But I mean, whom's among us hasn't had a straight friend make like a stupid joke like that, right?
Yeah, again, it's just very much like, was this an episode of Buffy or was it one of the road trip movies? Because I honestly feel like if Sean William Scott had just like wandered onto set, I would not have batted an eyelid.
I forgot that he was a person.
Between this and like the casual like Asian humor, it's just like really crass and gross.
Right, because Chow Ann comes back down and we get more of the like lactose intolerance, whatever.
Yeah.
Then they're all making the gay joke. And because even like when Dawn's like, ooh, Clem always liked you. I'm like, no, don't join in, Dawn. No.
Leave Clem out of this. Clem's been nothing but nice to you, and now you're making jokes about him. Like, oh, okay, well, I get it. The Slayer's a bigot. Okay, fine.
Right, yeah. But then Giles cuts them all off and gives them the like, we can't. I love that he like very dad is like, we can't be making jokes about sexuality. Like, I love the way he just like plainly like is like, no, we're not doing that.
And I mean, again, like, he's right. He's not saying anything. Like, he absolutely has a point. But also, A, cheer up, and B, like, he's not saying anything that Buffy doesn't already know. Like, Buffy's the one that's been like beaten half to death by the Turkans. Like, she knows what's going on. Like, everyone here knows, and like basically it's like, oh, perhaps they need like a moment of levity before they go back to their impending deaths. Like, just let them live. Oh my god! And then that's like the last thing you see of him in the episode is him like storming off in a huff, and it's just like, oh, I think Dad's mad at me.
So then we get the weird scene of Buffy and Spike in the living room where he's like, I should leave, and she says like she's not ready for him to not be there. He asks how the principal fits in, and she says nothing. And then we get our like kicker of the end. Like, if this were a Marvel movie, this would have been the post-credit scene.
Yeah.
I love this scene. I love it. I think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Principal Wood is like washing up in the bathroom. He looks in the mirror and we get the reveal, and I'm glad they didn't wait for it. I'm glad it's like he kind of said it, and then we just like explicitly say Nikki Wood is his mother, and it's the Slayer in the same outfit we saw her wear when she fought Spike. So we know, oh, that is very much that same character because it's a different actress playing her, which I don't know why they did that.
This is the first time I noticed that.
Yeah. I read that it's because before it was just a stunt person, and then they wanted an actor. Yeah. It was an amazing fight sequence on the subway, so I understand why they had somebody who was really just there for the sort of physical side of it. But yeah, I agree. This scene really, really works for me because it's so it's like what made Conversations with Dead People work is that the first is the most effective, perhaps, when it toes that line, and it's not being like a pantomime villain. It's being subtle and letting the person kind of make their own assumptions. And she's not like she's not pretending to like be his mother. Like, she knows that he knows she's not. But she's saying everything in such a maternal way. It just lends such a creepy undertone to everything, especially right at the end when she makes him say thank you. Yes.
It's just like, oh, it's exquisitely like icky.
It's more understated manipulation.
Yes, and it's crueler. It's crueler than like, like, I mean, we liked Jonathan as a character, but like, I don't know, like Andrew murdered him. So like in the end, it's like, well, you did it, Andrew. Like, but like this feels crueler because it is his mother that he hasn't seen since he was 4 years old. And like you said, Philip, she's not pretending, but she's still talking motherly. So it feels almost crueler that she's just like, even when he's like, I know who you are, like you serve no purpose, she still keeps going. She's not like affected by whatever he's saying. And yeah, when like, she's like, you fought alongside him, you know who killed me. And like, the beat of her saying, "What do you say?" His acting is very good in that scene. Like his face is like stoic, but like tears are in his eyes, and you can tell he's about to have like a breakdown about this, understandably, and just says like, "Thank you." I think it's so good.
Yeah, I think it's one of the strongest moments of the first, if I'm honest, that we see throughout the entire series. But I think what's nice in this moment is, the other times we see the first, like, I mean, straight away we get like, other people who react when they see the first and like, oh my God, and whoever guys it is. And it's like, it's nice that Robin straight away, like the first knows that Robin knows that, it's not really his mother. So straight away, the first thing he pretty much says is, oh, you're not my mother, you're the first. But what's nice is that the first, we see him, or, whatever guys it's in, giving orders to other characters, like, as Jonathan to Andrew, go and get the gun, go and do this, go and do that. But instead here, the first uses that manipulation as if, okay, I'm going to give you something that you want, some information, and by me doing that, you're going to do what I want you to do anyway. And it's really, really clever. I really love that. And it's just so well done with the first.
It's like you were saying earlier, if we'd been given more of a view of how the first operates outside of this, sort of very specific story arc, it's basically, this is the devil, sort of trying to seduce somebody. It's the devil being like, what can I give you in exchange for, your soul, essentially.
Yeah.
And all she has to say is, oh, well, I know something you don't know. I have this one thing that you've wanted since you were a child. And it's like, it's such a short scene. But it plays out so perfectly.
Yeah. Just like you were saying, Gwen, it's more nuanced in the manipulation.
Yeah. And I think this is a really good example of how like this whole episode really was just to set up this next arc, which is about like whether Spike deserves to be redeemed or not. Because I mean, we're not there yet. I don't even think it happens in the next episode, but maybe the episode after that, where it's like Wood tortures him. And it's like, okay, but he's already past the point where we think that he deserves this. So Wood comes out as the bad guy, but like he's also on paper not at all. So that's what makes this manipulation like so much scarier, because like it's such a gray area. The first isn't right, but like the first isn't wrong here either.
Right. They're just like delivering information. Like Spike did kill his mother.
Mm-hmm.
And now for a quick break. Folks, do you love movies? The good ones? Even the bad ones everyone told you not to like? It sounds like Super Yaki is the place for you. The team at Super Yaki loves movies. So much so, they've dedicated every waking moment of their life to bringing you top quality merchandise to showcase your love for them. From super soft t-shirts celebrating the 20th anniversary of the cinematic masterpiece Josie and the Pussycats, to comfy sweatshirts made for the brave members of the Movies by Yourself Club. They even have pins of some of your favorite directors, like Sofia Coppola and Jordan Peele. Super Yaki joyously brings you tangible love letters to movies and filmmakers that you can wear with pride. Plus, the team at Super Yaki screen prints all their apparel using eco-friendly, 100% water-based inks, and ships with compostable poly mailers for an environmentally friendly alternative to online shopping. And as a special gift to you, listeners can save 10% on their order with the code SUPERSlayerFest, all caps, no spaces, at checkout. If the spirit moves you, find them at superyaki.com. Let's watch more movies, y'all. And now, for a fashion roundup of First Date, we have Buffy Season 7 costume designer, Matt Van Dyne. Hello, Matt.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
What do you got for us today for First Date?
Well, First Date. Actually, I had a lot more to reference from because, it seemed as the season gets longer, I have more things that I had saved, so I, go back and then, but it gets kind of convoluted because I go, wait, I have to cross-reference this. I have to make sure, so I'm going back and forth, finding like different notes in my scripts, and it's really interesting. And I do remember a lot about this episode myself, just in my memory. And when this is the episode with Ashanti, and I remember so much about her being, available to us. I even have like a memo handed down from the higher ups at Fox about what days she would be working, and and what TV shows, E and Extra, and all these shows that were covering her appearance on the show.
Oh, I love that.
So I remember her fitting so well, and I remember just how sweet she is. And very, very kind, and kind of quiet. And as I recall, I believe her mother was with her at the time. But in the fittings, it was really just, pretty much she and I. And so what I recall from it, I even have personal photos of different outfits we tried that, we didn't use. And photos of the costume that I was making for her at the time when she crosses over into, I think I called her the Vixen, the dark Vixen or something like that. And we were doing a costume for that outfit. Was the character's name Lisa or Lissa or something like that?
Lissa, yeah.
Lissa. Okay. So, so when I first went into my notes and I was looking, I thought, well, who's that? I don't know who that is. But then when I saw the script, I went, oh, okay. And in my notes, the things we purchased and what we made for her. But in the beginning, I had a whole different concept that was approved for her costume when she would become the demon or Vixen or whatever. I don't know what to call her. I'm sorry. I don't know what to call that. But and we started building it, and I had collected all of these different elements of like fur and lame and just different fabrics, and we were building it, putting it together. And then there was a change of course. They didn't want that outfit, as it turned out. I think they had a different vision for it later because things change. Right. And so that's when we came up with the black outfit, that she ends up wearing in the show, which I went on the internet and I just thought, well, I was going to Google images of Ashanti Buffy, and boom. I mean, I was like, wow, there's a lot of that outfit out there. I had no idea. So, but that was all custom made as well. And we made that basically overnight because she was working the next day, as I recall, in that outfit. So, and then the jewelry I shopped, the waist belt, the jewelry and all that, as I recall, I think I found that maybe on Hollywood Boulevard someplace, but I'm not sure. And, but then also, for her other clothing in that episode, we had, her date outfit, which is so funny in the notes. And now I recall, that she wore this, the bustier that she's wearing, and that came from Saks Fifth Avenue, and it was Dolce & Gabbana. Oh, and it was, it was a really nice piece. And then there was also the black lace-up skirt that she wore, and that was also from Saks, and that was Moschino. Oh, wow! And that was something. It's funny. It's in the notes. She took that home with her. So because we have to account for everything, and I'm like, oh my gosh, well, I don't have any control over that. She wanted it, so she took it. So she took it home with her. I hope she enjoyed it. Yeah. So we ended up having to account for that. And then I can't remember where. I have a sketch of the whole outfit someplace because some of it was made and some of it wasn't. But she was just adorable. She was just so sweet. In the beginning, at the lumberyard where she's with Xander or Nicholas, that she was also wearing the red top was also Dolce & Gabbana in the first scene.
Was this because she was like a famous guest star, or was that just you happened to see that?
Not really. I don't think so. And I've allotted in my budget. I have my budget here, as I recall, and I looked at it quickly a while ago. I had allotted $2,000 for her in the budget.
Okay.
And my overall budget for that episode was $20,000. I've got it all here broken down, and she was, $2,000. That's what it was.
Is that a lot for that's a lot for a guest star, right?
Probably, yes, especially when, we were doing so many other characters, and Sarah would absorb a lot of the budget. Sarah in that episode was $4,000.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny. Her original name in the script was Maya, Maya. And that's why I couldn't find it when I was, going down through here, because in my preliminary budget, that was her character's name. So, and I think that, as I recall, we did this episode right after Christmas.
Uh-huh.
And I was working on this, before Christmas, and that was probably the name in the preliminary script, the first draft or whatever. So
that's interesting.
But then there were several other characters, of course, in this episode, and I just had certain notes that were kind of interesting. That in the first graveyard scene with Sarah and Anthony, I have it in my script. I wrote padded Sarah's outfit. We had to put pads underneath. I guess whatever she was doing required a little bit of being knocked about. And I have a photo of that someplace too, of that outfit, because I remember fitting her for that ski cap and that jacket, that double-breasted jacket. I do remember that. And then the only thing I want to say about Anthony's clothes is they were always expensive. They all came from Neiman's or the higher end stores. I always Saks and Neiman's, everything for him pretty much came from there.
You did a good job with that, I think, because before it was like he mostly wore suits, and you did a good job of like still making him look more adult in his fashion.
Oh, really? Did he wear suits? I didn't know that. Huh.
Yeah, like the first 3 seasons, he almost exclusively just wore suits.
Oh, okay. I have to go back and look. I always say I'm going to do that, and I haven't. But yeah, really. Okay. Well, yeah, he was more upscale, but not. I guess more casual than they originally conceived him. But there were different things in the episode that caught my eye, and one of them was like, and I have no idea where that came from, was Emma's poodle little cardigan, and I'll find it. I'm sure it's someplace in all of my records, but I love that little outfit. I thought that was adorable. And then Willow's paisley top that she wore, it had kind of a paisley print on it, I guess. It was kind of a khaki green with I think the jeans as well have floral embroidery down the side of them. I don't know where the jeans come, but the top came from Macy's, and it wasn't very expensive, but it photographed really great. It was $50, but that's all it cost. And I have to go back and look how much I allotted for her in the budget. And then the other thing that caught my eye was Kennedy, the character Kennedy's, that little white shirt. I thought it was kind of sexy on her, which was a Theory shirt. And that was $165. And that came from Saks, as I recall.
I'm always so impressed that you're like, oh, this shirt was 100. Oh, this shirt was 20. Like and like it all still looks like just as good on screen.
Yes, I mean, I guess that's my point. It's sometimes how things photograph that make the difference. It's because of the pattern or the fit or whatever. It doesn't always have to be super expensive.
You know what I was thinking that I did want to ask you? With styling the potential Slayers, like Kennedy definitely has a style.
Yes.
Like all the girls, how did that go with like making sure each one of them had their own style? Was that like all you? Was that like it came down from the writers? Was like a mix of both?
Oh, I don't recall it coming down from the writers at all.
Nice.
That was
nice.
I guess it would be me.
I figured it was you.
Yeah. And me and Terry before me, because Terry, was involved as well. So, but yeah, no, I would say like Kennedy, my concept for her was mostly mine, because I think she was mostly in the episodes, that I did.
Yeah.
But I it's funny you'd say that, because I noticed little things. I think like having her wear, emphasizing her waist with a belt, and because of the, she had this kind of commando presence in the series, and I wanted her to always show that, but yet be beguiling and sexy and appealing to the character of Willow, and Allison.
Well, see, I mean, that's how a gay person styled her, because I feel like you do a good job of the soft butch, where she's like the tough, like you said, she is a commando tough.
Thank you for saying that, because I probably never would have come up with that myself, but that's exactly it. That's the look. Yes. I didn't want it to be like stereotypical, I guess.
Yeah.
No. Because I don't think life is like that. I don't think it's like that. I think there are nuances and gradations of different things when it comes to orientation of sexuality or just in general in life. I just always think there's more to the picture than the obvious. I'll put it that way.
And I noticed that because I forgot that she wears suspenders in the previous episode, and you do put her in suspenders again.
Do I later? I haven't come to that yet. I guess I think
it's either in the second to last episode or the last episode for like a part of it. She's wearing suspenders, and she looks really good in them.
Oh, she does, doesn't she? Yeah. She does.
And I do think not everyone can pull off suspenders.
No, but she did. She was, I thought she photographed beautifully too.
Yeah.
I really did. And she was kind of, how would I put it? She and I had an interesting relationship. I mean, the actress, she and I. We got along very well, but it was like, it was kind of challenging, but not in a negative way. She would question. She would have some funny remarks for me at times. It was funny. Some of them were a little personal, I thought, but it was okay. But it was all right. And, but that's what I remember about her. But always agreeable. And I liked her very much, and I, thought she was really good in the part.
It's funny, because I'm getting used to like how you like. I feel like you talk a lot about how you deal with people, and I know that someone could take you saying that in negative, but I know that you don't mean that. You actually like. I feel like you liked when they had input.
Oh yeah, no, it's not negative at all. No, because I don't. If there is negativity, I really don't go there. So so just for everybody listening, never make that assumption, because it's not so.
It's because you like doing what you do.
Well, that's what's interesting about, when you're dealing with people and the way they dress, I mean, it's such an intimate thing that you are going to encounter them in a different way than most people would, because you're dealing with their body types, you're dealing with how they present themselves, and then an actress or an actor, we all have them, but I mean, there are insecurities, and why wouldn't there be? I mean, because you're putting yourself out there to be pretty much judged by everybody, that watches. Of course, I totally get that. But no, I never felt it was a negative at all. Not at all. And I always wanted to accommodate them and make them as happy as I could, and with, what I could do for them, in every way. And then I was going to mention a couple of other things that I thought was so pretty was the, Michelle, who plays Dawn. I thought that little print floral top she wears, I thought that was so pretty with that necklace. I wish I knew where the necklace came from. I didn't find it anywhere, but I know that we had doubles on that top, and they were, I think that little blouse was only like shirt or whatever you want to call it, floral shirt, was only like $90, but I thought it looked so cute on her with the little pink, little shell underneath. And then DB Woodside, I just always, I can't ever say enough good things about the way he always looks,
Every time I see him on screen now, I think of you being like, so nice, looks so great.
Oh, I just think he wears his clothing so well.
He does. He's so handsome.
Such a nice person, too. But in the date scene, it's funny. I was watching, and I had made a note of his the ribbed shirt that he wore, the jacket. But I also found the jacket as well. The jacket was $198. It's a Kenneth Cole jacket. I bought it at Macy's. That's where that came from. And his little shirt underneath. Again, it's all in the fit. And he could wear it, and it was it's a Calvin Klein, and I didn't write it down, but I got a pretty good memory when I look at something. I think it was only $48.
Nice.
Yeah, something like that. But okay, this is something I wanted to say about the way I have looked at the show since I did it and looking at it now. When I was doing it, and not too soon after, I would think, well, did I make things too simple looking? I don't know how to put it. I want to say, I just think, well, at the time I would think, oh, maybe it should have been more identifiable in some way, something they wore. Because I think a lot of the clothes before I did the show were like that. But now looking back at it, I think the reason it does look kind of timeless is because I did do it that way. Mm-hmm. And I think that it holds up better to my eye because I look at it and go, well, that doesn't really look so dated. It doesn't. I mean, it is some of it, but it's not like, oh, that looks so 2002, Yeah. It doesn't, a lot of it, you could wear today, a lot of it.
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
And that's just something I came to appreciate about looking at it because being so critical of myself initially, I thought, I probably should have done more. I should have done more, but I don't think so now. I think I did. I think maybe I did the right thing. I believe.
That makes me happy to hear because I agree with you.
Well, thank you. Well, I hope so. I hope people like it. I don't know, but I hope so. And really what was funny, at the end of the episode, I did see where Spike, I have his T-shirt, came from Macy's. It was $68, a Buffalo T-shirt. But again, James could wear things that I think everything looks so good on him, as well. And his clothing, it all has kind of a mood to it, everything. And I watch it, and it's consistent. And I like that I look at that and I go, nothing really pops out that you go, oh, why is he wearing that? It doesn't look that way. It's like because he's in kind of a funk, almost that whole season. So, and I think that's reflected in his clothing, as we see him, throughout, the episodes. And I do appreciate that it, and I look at it now and I think, I did think that through. But what was really funny, and I know I've probably told it, I don't need to tell the story again. I'm sure it's been told so many times, or I've heard myself say it so many times. But about the ending, when Principal Wood's mother shows up, in her 1970s outfit. Mm. Something new I found. I had a note in my script, something about Foxy Silver or something like that. Was that it was like, I think somebody gave me a note about that. Was that a character from some movie or something? They said she should look like that, but not quite as sexy. I don't know. But we were recreating something she'd already worn. So, but what was interesting, I found in my rental notes, I went back to I did recall renting it from Western Costume. And because I think that's where it originally came from. And if this wasn't the exact outfit, it was darn close, to what was it in the original,
I mean, definitely looks like it.
Well, good. But what struck out to me was it was January 14th, 2003 when I rented it. Well, that just, now I know where I was on my mother's birthday in 2003 because that's my mother's birthday. So, but I just thought it was funny. But I have the boots and all that. We don't see that in this episode, but that's where that came from. So,
so if you rented that and it was in more than one episode, did you have to do a prolonged rental or just go back and rent it?
We would prolong it because once I found it and I had to dig for it, believe me, I wasn't going to give it up again and have it, go back into their stock and have to find it again or, God forbid somebody else rent it out from under me. So, but I was fortunate enough. I can remember it was on a rack on the second story, high up. I had to climb this big ladder. I found it way up high.
Jesus.
Yeah, and I was digging. It was like 7 a.m. I remember that.
Ooh.
I was digging forever for that. And that's a dusty, dirty place, to go in. Because, things just,
right.
A Western costume. A lot of that stuff, that was in 2003. So a lot of that stuff dates back, to the beginning of the movies. I mean, it's like you have, different things in there from way back in the 1920s and 30s. But
wow.
But in that section, it probably wasn't that old. But I had a note for Nicholas's shirt. Xander's shirt came from French Connection. Oh, no, wait. Okay. It's a French Connection shirt that came from Nordstrom. And it was $178. I think that's the one he wore on his date. And then I think at the lumberyard, that was a corduroy kind of Western-looking shirt was, but I don't know where I put it. Here it is. It was a brown. It's a brown corduroy. BC Ethic, $59 from Nordstrom. So, and I'm looking to see if I have anything else to share with you, but I think I covered pretty much all of it.
Okay, cool. Matt, it is always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and it's always a pleasure to speak with all of you. So,
talk to you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, and favorite outfit, Quinn.
Okay, so Kennedy, I just mentioned it earlier. Kennedy's outfit in this is like literally everything. I would wear it tomorrow. She looks spectacular. I myself am like you can see it on the Zoom call, but they cannot hear it on the podcast. A big fan of the spiky half up bun. Okay, the high-waisted pant, a classic. The button down, so good. 10 out of 10.
Philip, what was your favorite outfit?
I have to go with exactly the same. I mean, it's been a wild episode for that early noughties fashion, but whenever I'm kind of on the show rewatching, I always think like, what could be worn today without like, people looking at you and thinking you're crazy. And it's the white shirt tucked into the black jeans, with the sort of spiky.
It fits her really well too. It's like a
she looks great. Like, and it's so simple. It's so chic. But yeah, I love it.
It's just not even one of the ones on a date.
Right.
Yeah.
I have worn that on a date. A nice button down and some jeans, like forget all this lingerie shit. Like,
I do think season 7 has like some outfits that like the coat Dawn wears in Potential. I'm like, I would wear that. That's a cute jacket. Like it does have more like stuff you would still wear now. Yeah. Adam, what was your favorite outfit?
I mean, there are some outfits which stand the test of time and we'll be talking about in years to come, and Kennedy's is one of them. I mean, hands down. I mean, that outfit, it is a power outfit. She looks fantastic. I remember like the first moment I saw her in that outfit, that's the first thing I wrote down in my notes. I was like, that outfit, yes. Like,
Kennedy,
it's
all
just
caps.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, like I even wrote it in capital letters. Like Kennedy, yes. Yeah, she is killing in it.
It's so funny because I when I looking back and remember before I rewatched the episode, like when I was remembering, I could remember like the weird black lace thing that Buffy wears over her like camisole and jeans, and I could remember. I remember the various weird camo stuff that Spike wears throughout the season. I think had like some vague memory of like the belly dancer outfit that Ashanti wears. And it's like, I never think of Kennedy as like a fashion character, but it's just like this perfect little like soft butch chef's kiss. I love it.
Yes. That's it.
It really is a soft butch, like really well done. My favorite outfit, I liked Anya's like end outfit with like cute cardigan and like the little, I think it was like a flower or something on it. I really liked, she looked cute in it. Favorite scene, Adam?
Oh, it's the ending. Like, hands down. Like, the ending makes the whole purpose of the entire episode, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, that is the plot. Like, that is the main plot, which is obviously, Robin finding out that Spike is the one who killed his mother. But it's not even just to kind of, it's just the way it's done. It's the way it's done with the first and the way it's delivered. It's just one of the best uses of the first, hands down. And even just his reaction and then him saying thank you at the end as well. It's expertly done. So yeah, if anything, the episode has purpose for that scene alone.
Quinn?
Yeah. I 100% agree with Adam that like that's the reason we sat through the last 45 minutes of exposition was because of that scene specifically. But because of the direction of the rest of the season, I think my favorite scenes in this episode are the ones where it's just like the Scooby Gang being together, existing, because like we hardly see the potentials. Not a lot happens in this episode in regards to like the actual overarching plot, but it gets an extra glowy review from me for being those last tidbits of like Scooby Gang magic that we don't really get to see again, like not ever, because from here on out, it's just like balls to the wall apocalypse. So I really appreciate those moments of levity that they gave us before the whole show just like broke down, basically.
So I agree with Quinn. It's got to be the scene where Buffy and Willow are folding laundry and talking about Buffy's love life. And then Xander comes in, he's like, guess what? And Willow's like, Buffy's on a date. And just completely feels his stuff.
No, I'm on a date.
And he's like, oh, okay. And it's this wonderful callback to like, oh, like we've been with these idiots since high school. And like, we know exactly what that dynamic is. And they know, and it's comforting and it's funny. Amid an episode of otherwise hugely mixed moments of like homophobia and racism.
Right.
True,
there is that.
True.
I'm gonna agree with Adam. That ending is my favorite scene. Like it gives me the chills. I love him having to say thank you while he's like tearing up and like clearly full of rage is just so good. What grade do you give this episode, Quinn?
I'm going to go with a solid B-. It's very clear to me that Philip and I are the saps here, and I accept that mantle gladly. But yeah, I give it a B- just because it really doesn't advance the plot. It just sets up a lot of groundwork, which is fine. I love that kind of episode. So it gets extra for me for that. But in general, it's like I said at the beginning, like I never even remember anything that happens in this except for the fact that Xander goes on a date with another demon. And that's not even really part of the plot at all. It's like the lesser part of the plot.
Adam?
I agree with Quinn. So I initially had C+, but then since talking about it with you guys, I pulled it up to a B-. I think, it's really allowed me to Team Quinn. It's really allowed me to appreciate the friendship between obviously the main Scoobies, which is always one of the highlights of Buffy anyway. And especially, when we think about the very last episode of the season, like that moment between all, like, what do you guys want to do tomorrow? It's a really nice moment that reminds you of like how great this core group of friends is. So I think that, and obviously, that ending with the first as well, it's really pulled the episode up for me. So I would say B-.
Philip?
I, at the risk of sounding like an absolute sheep, I had B- written in my notes. We will go for a full house here. Yeah, basically for everything that that Quinn and Adam have said, it's sort of the plot is kind of pointless, aside from setting up, Robin Hood's arc and having that kind of really exquisitely sort of dark ending. But yeah, other than that, it's just like it's a nice bit of levity and some funny little character moments in what is a fast becoming a very turgid and impenetrable season.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be the odd man out here. I give it a C+. I almost was convinced to a B-, but I think I'm still standing strong with the C+.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah, that was my initial instinct, but I was like, the warm fuzzies, I feel them so deep in my chest.
Thank you all for joining me. Philip, thank you for coming back to co-host. Philip, I can't believe this is only your second episode co-hosting. Is it really only your second season 7?
I mean, it's a long season. It feels like the show has been, recapping season 7 for like half of the pandemic.
Started right, actually, I think it was a whole pandemic. So you took like 2 breaks. So if you like Slayerfest 98, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. If you like us, feel free to subscribe to us and please rate us on Apple Podcasts. It's really helpful for the podcast. And if you want to support us, we are on Patreon, where there are a ton of bonus episodes. We're currently going through Harley Quinn, but there's a ton of My Bloody Judy bonus episodes and stuff like that. And you can watch our YouTube series, My Nudie Judy, which is me and Zachary Patton Garcia talking about sex stuff, and get access to a private Facebook group. And if you want to follow us on social media, we are at SlayerFestX98 on all platforms, and I am at Ian X Carlos on all platforms. Quinn, where can everyone find you?
You can find me at Quinn McKay on Twitter and at Real Quinn McKay on Instagram, because somebody's holding on to that handle. They won't give it back to me. And I want to give just like a quick shout out to my brother, Ryan, who's way cooler than I am, who introduced me to this podcast. And for that reason, I won't use this as an excuse to put myself over as the supreme sibling.
Yeah, Ryan is wonderful and has a band called Big Damn Heroes, and you should check them out. I mentioned them every Firefly episode we did. I think I was always being like, oh, and blah blah has a band, and yeah, you should check them out. Philip, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Philip_Ellis. That's Philip with 1 L, Ellis with 2, or on Instagram at Philip Ellis. I hopefully have some pretty cool stuff that I'm not allowed to talk about right now, but maybe by the time the episode drops, I will. So give me a follow.
And Adam, where can everyone find you?
So you can find my YouTube content by typing in my name, Adam Straughan. You type that in, you'll see my face. You can also find my podcast. So Last Week On and Into You, it's on all podcasting platforms. So if you forget the name of the last one there, just remember the Ariana Grande song and you'll be absolutely fine. And if you want to follow me, I am at Straughan87 on Twitter and Instagram.
Cool. All right. Well, we will see you all next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.